Hello, I am Alex, aka Mont, and in this video we're going to be talking about one thing and one thing only. If the Slayer of Demons, Chosen Undead, Bearer of the Curse and Good Hunter duked it out, who would win? Who is the most powerful amongst them? This is, of course, purely hypothetical and there is no definite answer. But then the point isn't to find the answer, the point lies in the discussion. As such, if you have any ideas or comments, leave them down below. And maybe check out the poll and leave your vote there. One request though, do try and be polite, no matter how passionate you might get over this topic. So in this first part we're mostly going to explore the feats and story accomplishments of each character, and then I'll give my verdict, and you can of course give yours by voting in the poll, which there's a link to in the description. Then there'll be a follow-up video wherein we'll discuss this purely from a gameplay standpoint, but for now this is talking from lore story perspective. Who is the most powerful in their universe at the end of the story? This video will of course contain endgame spoilers for Demon's Souls, Dark Souls 1 and 2 and Bloodborne. So let's get started with a look at each of the prospective champions. And we'll start at the beginning, with the Slayer of Demons.
I shall await thine return, Slayer of Demons.
This is, of course, the player character from Demon's Souls, the original Souls game, and this character enjoys, from a gameplay perspective perhaps, the advantage of some very broken mechanics. But how about from a story perspective? What are this character's greatest achievements? Well, as is often the case here, our Slayer of Demons travels to Boletaria, a land in Duress, seeking fame, fortune, glory, riches, or whatever other backstory you care to make up for your character. Whether they start as a soldier, knight, hunter, priest, magician, wanderer, barbarian, thief, temple knight, or royalty, eventually, and with the aid of some mighty demon souls, they can master every form of combat, from the martial arts to the soul arts, and of course, miracles. It wouldn't be a Souls character without some form of curse though, would it? And the Slayer of Demons, upon their inevitable death, has their soul trapped by the Nexus, which effectively means they cannot die, whereas usually one might die in their body and then again in their soul, which would lead to the true death. Dying simply sends the player character back to the Nexus, which has trapped you. And it's worth noting that the Slayer of Demons does have to die at least once during the course of the story, generally at the very beginning, either to the Vanguard Demon or the Dragon God itself. But what is the player's goal in Demon's Souls? Essentially, to defeat the archdemons and lull the old one back to slumber. So let's look at a list of the Slayer of Demons achievements, shall we? Chief amongst those would be, of course, defeating the archdemons, the Storm King, the Dragon God, the Old Monk, Maiden Astraea, and the False King. Of these, the Slayer of Demons typically borrows the power of Storm Ruler, an exceedingly powerful blade, to defeat the Storm King. The Dragon God is largely defeated by crippling it with machinery, and Maiden Astraea's strength either does not manifest itself in an obvious way, or she has not the conviction for battle. The Old Monk is a vessel demon. The head wrap summons a host and imbues them with power. So I think it's fair to say the most powerful thing defeated by the Slayer of Demons would be the False King. There are no real gimmicks involved, it is a purely one-on-one battle. Beyond this, the Slayer of Demons also has the capability to defeat various other powerful monsters, including 2 dragons. At the end of Demon's Souls, the Slayer of Demons has a choice: lull the old one back to slumber, or join it. If the Slayer of Demons chooses the good ending, then the old one is swept away once more, but knowledge of soul arts, magic, is lost from the world. This could imply that the Slayer of Demons also loses their magical powers, although that same ending states that the Slayer of Demons has essentially become a monumental, holding together the fabric of reality, that they are a brave new hero of unprecedented power, whereas if the Slayer of Demons decides to join the old one, then the world is engulfed by the deep fog, and the Slayer of Demons becomes the most powerful of all demons. Indeed, the Slayer of Demons is perhaps the most bloodthirsty and brutal of the characters here. Maiden Astraea puts up minimal resistance and even ends her own life, spitefully remarking that you should take your precious demon soul. And King Alant comments, "No human has an appetite for souls, such as you. It is a very old principle that power corrupts. Whether or not the Slayer of Demons gives in to that corruption is up to the player. But the temptation and the threat are very real."
There is an old saying in my family, "Thou who art undead art chosen."
Does the Chosen Undead need any introduction? The most famous of the bunch, the face of Souls, you could say. Perhaps the ultimate Souls character that represents so well what the series is all about. Persistence and willpower. The name itself is deceptive at first. The Chosen Undead is not chosen, they are not special. They are not the hero of prophecy or anything like that. There is no fate, no destiny. They are simply the one with enough willpower to fulfill that role. They have met the conditions, they have become the Chosen Undead, and that, I believe, is one reason this hero is one people are so fond of. No destiny beyond what is made with your own hands. Whether you choose to accept that duty as hero of prophecy is up to you. Whether you choose to be a warrior, knight, wanderer, thief, bandit, hunter, sorcerer, pyromancer, cleric, or simply deprived, the Chosen Undead starts the game as a prisoner of the Undead Asylum, already cursed before the game even began. The Chosen Undead suffers from a curse that renders them largely immortal, but prone to hollowing, and of course feared by humans. As such, they are corralled and imprisoned, and as the game so aptly puts it, this is your fate. Or is it? Because thanks to the efforts of one Oscar of Asura, the Chosen Undead manages to make an escape from the asylum and ends up in Lordran, the beginning of their great adventure that may culminate in the linking of the fires. So, let's have a look at some of the Chosen Undead's greatest achievements, shall we? Ignoring the likes of the Asylum, Taurus and Capra demons, we have the 4 Lord Souls primarily. Nito, first of the dead, the Witch of Izalith who has been consumed by the Bed of Chaos, and finally Seath the Scaleless and the 4 Kings, each of whom are in possession of a fragment of Gwyn's soul. Even one of these would be quite the achievement. All of the demons in Demon Souls are subservient to the Old One in one way or another, but in Dark Souls, you could argue that Seath and the 4 Kings are subservient to Gwyn in that they possess fragments of his soul, and even beyond those we have Gwyn's 4 Knights, Ornstein, Artorias, Goth and Kieran, all 4 of whom can be defeated by the Chosen Undead. Ornstein and Artorias being particular of note. Ornstein is the captain and Artorias was corrupted and powered up by the Abyss. Speaking of, we have Manus that can be added to the Chosen Undead's achievements. Upon his defeat he was fractured, and the Daughters of Dark that were met and vanquished by the Bearer of the Curse, they each represent only a part of the Father of the Abyss's power. And then there's Calamite. The only foe, if you can even call it that the Chosen Undead is not really able to vanquish would be the Everlasting Dragon of Ash Lake. Indeed, at the end of the game, the Chosen Undead has done most, if not all of the above, on top of defeating a hollowed out Gwyn. For the purposes of this video, let us assume that the Chosen Undead picked the Dark Lord ending, meaning they have not sacrificed their power to link the fires. Interestingly, much like the Slayer of Demons, the Chosen Undead generally will have to die at least once during his quest to continue, namely, during his first encounter with Seath the Scaleless, where the Chosen Undead is defeated and put into jail, although there are several ways around this, but, well, they're largely glitches. Unquestionably powerful, but how about for the Chosen Undead's spiritual successor?
Bearer of the curse, I will always be at your side.
Usually the underdog in scenarios like this, the Bearer of the Curse has the disadvantage of being both the first character belonging in a direct sequel, and the main character of what is, I would say, the most divisive game amongst the Souls franchise. Dark Souls 2 was ambitious and made some rather drastic changes that some people found in ill taste, shall we say, but we'll get to that later. For now we're focusing on story elements alone, and unlike the other characters, you can make the argument that the Bearer of the Curse is the only one with a canon gender, that being male, because at the start of the game your character will always be male. I don't think that really has any bearing here, I just felt like pointing it out. As far as classes go, the bearer of the curse is a traveller who falls through a mysterious portal, waking in the land of Dranglake, having the possible origins of a warrior, knight, swordsman, bandit, cleric, sorcerer, explorer, and deprived. Very similar to the Chosen Undead. But unlike the coup, the bearer came to Dranglake, at least somewhat willingly. So what notches in the belt does the bearer have to boast of? Like the Chosen Undead, the bearer is given the goal of defeating 4 great ones. The Lost Sinner, the Rotten, the Writhing Ruin, and Icarus Earth, each of whom possess a reincarnation of the original Lord Souls. The Lost Sinner and the Witch, the Rotten and Nito, Duke Steer Freya and Seath, and the Old Iron King and Gwyn. Beyond that, the bearer of the curse is able to strike down all but one of the known Daughters of Dark, Nishandra, Ilana, and Nadalia. Alsana is non-hostile, but can also be killed. But perhaps the bearer of the curse's greatest achievement is defeating the Ivory King. The Sunken King and the Old Iron King are already dead by the time we arrive, and Vendrick is hollow, whereas the Ivory King has only been corrupted by the Old Chaos. And in Dark Souls 2, the implication is that each of these kings are essentially chosen undead. They are individuals who have defeated the 4 great old ones and obtained great power. And how about knights? The bearer has defeated a good number of those too. Throne Watcher and Defender, Raim and Velstad, and of course, Sir Alon. And at the end of the game, the bearer of the curse is able to do something not even the Chosen Undead managed. Escape the Undead curse. This is managed by utilising the power of King Vendrick, the Ivory, Sunken and Iron Kings. When their remaining strength is combined, the resulting power is enough to create a cure for the curse. It's not a permanent cure, and it's only for the bearer of the curse, but it could be a hint for the future. Not much can ultimately stand in the way of the bearer of the curse, not even the ancient dragon, an extremely powerful creature, if not perhaps a true dragon. But then there is at least one thing that the bearer of the curse cannot defeat: Uldir, the scholar of the first sin. But that isn't to say that the bearer of the curse is to be trifled with. But then, none of these characters are what you could call weak. And whilst the Slayer of the Demons and the Chosen Undead are forced to die at least once, I don't think the bearer of the curse is, but I might just be forgetting something.
Hello, good hunter. I am a doll, here in this dream to look after you.
And finally, we move outside of the Souls franchise to Bloodborne. Why are we including this? Well, if Bloodborne was called Dark Souls 3, I doubt many people would bat an eye. It follows in much the same vein as the other games in the series, but with enough differences to make it a very interesting comparison. And I dare say the Good Hunter might be the fan favourite to win this, so let's have a look at their list of accomplishments. Arriving in the city of Yharnam, the Good Hunter receives a blood transfusion that kicks off their surreal adventure. There are no real classes in Bloodborne, but rather you choose a personality or backstory for your character from the following: Milquetoast, the lone survivor, troubled childhood, violent past, professional, military veteran, noble scion, cruel fate, and waste of skin. They are all hunters, so in a sense they are all hunters as their class, you might think. Unlike the others, they do not have much in the way of armour or protective gear, eschewing them in favour of lighter coats and the like, allowing them to move quickly and quietly. Again, they are hunters, and it seems their foes pay little mind to armour and tear right through it. The Good Hunter also has access to less weapons than do the others, but on the flip side, greater technology, firearms for starters. And although there's no magic, they do have the ability to utilise several arcane items to achieve very similar results. As far as trophy kills go, the Good Hunter primarily is a hunter of beasts, including the Cleric Beast, Blood-Starved Beast, and so on. Primarily beasts, but not limited to them. The Good Hunter has also defeated eldritch abominations such as the Amygdala and Abritus, and skilled humans equivalent to the Ornsteins of old, Logarius and Gehrman primarily. And now you might say that the Good Hunter is killing gods, which might sound like a pretty big deal, but it depends on how you define god. from a lore perspective, the Great Ones of Bloodborne are not too dissimilar to Archdemons, Lord Souls, and Old Ones of prior games. Which of course leads us to the endings of Bloodborne. During one, you are captivated by the moon presence and pledged to watch over the hunter's dream. During another, you live through the hunt, and in the true ending you become an infant Great One. Which is one you might be thinking, well, you basically become a god. Of course that's the best, right? Well, not really. For starters, you're a defenseless slug, and even when you grow up, you're going to become, what? Rom? Abritus? And all of the other characters here are specialised in killing monsters and the like. So, for the sake of this video, let's say that the Good Hunter will be before the ending, at the height of their power when they are fighting Gehrman, and let's assume that it isn't all a dream and the hunter imagined their power, as that will make things needlessly complex. So we'll say that he's the hunter after defeating Murgo's wet nurse, say. All that considered, who do you think would win? The Slayer of Demons? The Chosen Undead? The Bearer of the Curse? Or the Good Hunter? Remember, there are no right or wrong answers here, it's purely hypothetical. But hey, do leave a vote in the poll link, and feel free to justify your answers in the comments if you feel like it. I've thought about it long and hard, and I tried to remain as unbiased as possible because, you know, I like all the games. I like Demon's Souls, Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne. But in the end I came to the conclusion that the most powerful amongst them is, drumroll, the Chosen Undead. And I'll tell you why I came to that conclusion. The Slayer of Demons, Bearer of the Curse, and Good Hunter are all reliant on their maidens to increase their power. Maiden in Black, Emerald Herald, and Plain Doll respectively. The Chosen Undead is able to craft and manipulate souls without the aid of others, needing only a bonfire. The Good Hunter also required the blood transfusion, which could have done any number of things to their body and abilities. But you might be thinking, well, the Chosen Undead needs the bonfires, without them he wouldn't be able to level up, which is very true. In a way, they all need their mechanics, but I do think the Chosen Undead is kind of the best off there. Because I mean, if you lose the Maiden in Black, you have no way to increase your power. If you lose the Emerald Herald and the Good Doll, you have likewise the same problem. But leveling up at bonfires, I don't really think that's so much of a lore thing as much as it's just a gameplay thing. I believe the Chosen Undead and his ilk would be able to level up anywhere, more or less. The Chosen Undead is also not subservient to any other. Whilst it's true they cannot defeat the primordial serpents or everlasting dragons of Ash Lake, the Chosen Undead is supreme during the Dark Lord ending. The Slayer of Demons either subdues or serves the Old One. The Good Hunter basically turns into a slug, a slave, or goes back to their normal life. The Bearer of the Curse can achieve a similar Dark Lord status, but is unable to vanquish Aldia at the end of the game, and is somewhat guided by his actions. The Chosen Undead comes the closest to forging their own path, although of course, they are very real ways being manipulated by both Karth and Frampt. And this is a tough one, but when it comes to who went through the most crap, I'm inclined to lean towards the Chosen Undead. The Good Hunter came to Yharnam with a goal. What that goal is, we don't know. The Slayer of Demons came to Boletaria of their own volition, and the Bearer of the Curse was drawn to Drangleic. The Chosen Undead, however, simply managed to escape the asylum and ended up in Lordran. Did they want to go there? Probably not, but that's where the bird took them. Their main power is their willpower. No matter how many times they die, they keep coming back again and again, determined to continue. Of course, this applies to all the characters, as representations of the player, but I feel Dark Souls best encompasses this. The player arrives in Lordran and can see Anor Londo, and they struggle up that mountain. I don't know, there's something very epic about it to me, like a Greek poem or something. It was a very close one, but I had to go with Chosen Undead in the end. For the others, I suppose I'd have to rank second as either the Bearer of the Curse or the Slayer of Demons, and last up would be the Good Hunter. That's not to say I think the Good Hunter is weak or anything like that, just not quite as powerful from a lore perspective as the others. But hey, let me know what you think. There'll be a follow-up to this video as well, wherein we'll talk about who would win from a gameplay perspective, which will be even more complicated, considering they all use different systems. That's part of the fun though, right? Until then though, take care and see you later. Milk toast. Is it fucking really milk toast?
Milk toast.